This time round, the Chamwada report comes to you from the land of 1,000 hills, Rwanda. In 1994, Rwanda experienced the worst of times. But 25 years later, Rwanda is rising.
We know that the future of Africa lies in infrastructure.
So what are some of the lessons that we can learn from Rwanda?
The national dialogue is what we can see, the president talking to the ministers, to the population, and finding out what went wrong.
Omuganda, this is a national activity that we do, literally meaning community work.
They call it a car-free day, whereby a certain kind of route, one of the routes is free of cars, so people can do all sorts of exercise.
Welcome to the program, or as they say in Kinyarwanda, Murakaza neza. First things first, let's have the fact sheet.
On our fact sheet this week, it's Rwanda at a glance. Let's begin with the country's population, which is about 12.5 million based on the latest United Nations estimates. In Rwanda, there are three main tribes: the Hutu, who are the majority, the Tutsi, and Twa people. Kinyarwanda is the national language of Rwanda and the first language of almost the entire population of the country. It's one of the country's official languages alongside French, English, and Swahili. The capital city of Rwanda is Kigali. Rwanda's economy suffered heavily because of the 1994 genocide, but has since improved. The economy is based mostly on subsistence agriculture, though tourism is a fast-growing sector and is now the country's leading foreign exchange earner. In 2018, the International Monetary Fund retained Rwanda's economic growth projection for 2018 at 7.2%, owing to strong industrial activity and improved agricultural production, making it one of Africa's fastest growing economies. The currency of Rwanda is the Rwandan franc. 1 Kenyan shilling is about 8 Rwandese francs. And that's the fact sheet.
Recently, a number of African countries gathered in Kigali, Rwanda, to discuss the future of infrastructure development in Africa. And something that was coming out very strongly is that Africa can do better when it comes to infrastructure development and public works. Here are the highlights of that particular conference. At Kigali Convention Center, captains of industry convened for the 5th International Conference on Infrastructure and Public Works. It was a two-day conference held in December 2018. Discussions here focused on how to foster African economic growth in the face of infrastructural challenges.
The idea is to ensure that we collaborate, that we share our ideas.
Linda Afin-Kwasi is the chief convener. She explains why the infrastructure development talks could not have come at a better time.
We can see that Africa is rising, and we can see that there is a lot of interest from abroad, from European nation, Asian nation towards Africa as far as infrastructure are concerned. And it's important for us to showcase that we have those infrastructure. We also have the talent for the people to also invest into these sectors, and also the private sectors that are local to have an understanding of why people are coming across our borders to invest in our countries for infrastructure, and see how best we can negotiate those different tenders so we can have a win-win situation for all Africans. We know that the future of Africa lies in infrastructure. Therefore, it's important that we ensure that we know what's needed, we know where the gaps are, and we also find partners, African partners, to ensure that we work together.
Talking of the gaps in infrastructure development on the continent, African Development Bank indicated in the year 2018 that Africa will need nearly $100 billion worth of investment in infrastructure. Now, less than half of this amount is available to date. As highlighted during the conference, most African countries are now borrowing money for infrastructural development from China. Kenya is one of those countries. In fact, Kenya ranked as the third most indebted country to China in Africa in the period between 2000 and 2017, according to China Africa Research Initiative data. Only Angola and Ethiopia, who owe China 4.28 trillion Kenya shillings and 1.37 trillion Kenya shillings in the period under the review, were ahead of Kenya. A trend that analysts say that respective countries ought to be careful about.
The problem with China is specific. China, you get what you want from them. If you want an infrastructure, you get an infrastructure. If you want an easy money, you get an easy money. If you really want to transfer technology, you would get a transfer technology. Because I could tell you, across the continent, some countries like Nigeria, for example, they're using Chinese money very wisely in a way where we get the money, but they make sure that the project being financed is a project that could repay that debt. But most importantly, they make sure that the transfer technology is there. I think what we need to know is what do we want from China? Because China knows exactly what they need from us. The question is, what do we need from China? Number one. Number two is, I don't have a problem with us using Chinese money, but we have to be very smart in the way we're using it. Meaning, let's make sure that the project that we are financing, that's not a piece of infrastructure is the most important things, but let's look at how to repay that debt.
China, we cannot wish away. China has money at the moment. But before China, there were other countries, other nations that were strong and that were funding Africa. So when we look at China, we shouldn't look at China with a negative perspective. We should look at what is in for us as Africans, what is in for China, and that's where we need to strike the balance.
Parts that we don't need for the infrastructure development of our Africa.
As delegates addressed the Africa's growing public debt, which comes with infrastructure development, there was another challenge which appeared to be common across board.
It's the same thing everywhere in Africa. Corruption is a big challenge to take out of our countries.
If you look at the corruptions, money that are fleeing Africa every year is estimated to be $80 billion every year, which is around what we need every year to close our infrastructure financing gap. Across the world, whenever you talk about big project, there is a level of corruption associated to it, and it's not an African issue. It's a worldwide issue, and it shouldn't be a battle for the continent. It should be a battle for the whole world. However, as I said to you, the link that I'm pretty much doing is if we fight corruption in Africa, at least that money fleeing the continent could have been utilized to finance our infrastructure need.
And while corruption and lack of finances was cited as a key factor hindering infrastructural development in Africa, some had a different opinion.
I think there's a lack of vision. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all for the whole continent. Every country needs to set a vision for itself. What do we need to do? What do our kids need? Because it doesn't need to be buildings that we see in America and in Europe. It doesn't need to be what China is working on. But what is that path we want to give to infrastructure and to buildings in our continent? Which form should it have? And we have to define it. Once that's defined, the rest will be piece of cake. Whether it's money, conceptualizing. I mean, I talked about it earlier, diaspora. When it comes to conceptualizing and designing, tap as much as possible into that, because we have the chance that not much is done at this stage.
Very fruitful discussions coming from various stakeholders. I'm talking of government agencies, non-governmental organizations, as well as multinational companies. But the most interesting bit for me was seeing students who have their roots in Kenya but schooling in Rwanda making their contribution.
My presentation was about a low-cost housing solution that also comes with renewable energy, and I believe this is a leapfrog for us to get to green cities. And this will also help families save up because, renting and electricity bills are really high. So I really believe it's a good initiative. And I just want to...
We don't have our own people working in these roads or projects that we have. My presentation today was on the link between infrastructure and education. So I was more focused on the role of education in making infrastructural development successful in Africa. This entails the engineers that we need to produce to the market, as well as the curriculum, which definitely has to change to cope up with the changing and dynamic world in the engineering sector.
The conference was organized by Kaizen, a company based in London and Abidjan, in charge of organizing infrastructure conferences on the continent. But why was the conference held in Rwanda?
This year we needed to do it in a country that's a model country, and we know that Rwanda is a model country. They've managed quite successfully to go through the 25-year life cycle and then have a country that works. Have models here as far as the green infrastructure are concerned, and we also have models as far as the leadership and governance is concerned.
Those are some of the key things that must be addressed if infrastructure development in Africa has to go to the next level. At this point, we take a short break, but when we return, we are going to move out from the conference room in Kigali Convention Center and go to other parts of this country. Stay with us if you can. 25 years ago, the genocide in Rwanda was almost taking this country's economy to its knees. But now the country is rising and we have a lot to learn from this particular country. And so this second part of the show is all about lessons from Rwanda. To appreciate where Rwanda is today, someone just needs to reflect and see how Rwanda was about 2 decades ago. And there is no place which captures the dark past of Rwanda other than Kigali Genocide Memorial. The final resting place for more than 250,000 victims of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Today, Kigali Genocide Memorial serves as a place for remembrance and learning, lest the Rwandans forget. From Kigali Genocide Memorial, I take a drive through Kigali. The city is notably clean. Mark you, Rwanda was the first country in East Africa to ban non-biodegradable plastics in 2008. But the chairman of Kigali City Council, Atanase Rutabingwa, tells me there is more than just the laws.
It is engaging the people. You may have good laws, but people are not implementing them. Today, you cannot, even if you use our public buses today. One, you have very good buses that have even internet inside the store of Kigali. You go there, you have Wi-Fi. But nobody can even drink water and drop a bottle there. So that's a culture that they have. You carry your bottle up to the next point or the point of destination, we are going to find a container where you can always drop whatever you think you need to throw away. So it is a culture that people help the government. The government can, even if you have good laws, you cannot enforce them without the cooperation of the people.
Urbanization is a sensitive issue in Kigali, with land and construction costs rising every day and 1 million people living in a very densely populated area. Skyscrapers are changing Kigali's skyline, but the most interesting bit is how some of these mega structures are being constructed. Construction industry in Kigali, Rwanda is booming, and now construction companies are resorting to using waste materials to do the construction. Find out how.
Almost 90% all the raw materials are got locally. Is the straw panel that is a board, like construction board, that's producing entirely out of wheat and rice straw. So it used to be like waste straw that the farmers used to burn or feed to the cows, but 70% used to be like wastage. So right now we are buying the 70% that used to waste from the farmers, compacting it here in Kigali and producing the straw panels that will be then used for the internal walling partitions. Then the exterior frames, we are doing it out of late gauge steel framings. It's also a sustainable technology of using steel. Instead of using hard form steel, this is cold form steel, very thin, and it will be used as the main structure of the building. But this one here is a school, to be a secondary school. So the 2 blocks that we have started with here for the phase 1 will be the classroom blocks, but then there will be other phases for all the facilities needed for the school. So it will be a very big campus.
Here, the common cement-made walls are being replaced with wheat and rice straw. The concept is being implemented by Strotec, a German company which has entered the market with a bang and gotten the attention of the construction industry in Kigali. I'm now headed to the outskirts of Kigali, and upon reaching this primary school, I'm meant to understand it's time for Omuganda.
So it's a community work that's done by all Rwandans and the friends of Rwanda and the residents of Rwanda. That's always done ideally at every last Saturday of every month. So all Rwandans across the country, right from the president up to the people at the community level, they all participate in their communities. You don't have to travel from one place to another. So it is organized at a community level. You do the work, you do the cleaning, you construct schools like this one being constructing, you construct roads, you do some reparations of a number of stuff, anything that we think needs community help. So that's what we do. And by doing that one, it is mobilizing Rwandans, one, to love their country, two, to participate in the reconstruction of the country after it was destroyed in the 1994 genocide. So we think that today we can save a lot of money by using we Rwandans to do the work that could ordinarily be done by an entrepreneur, a company, and that would cost a lot of money to the government.
Well, and talking of some of the lessons that we can borrow from Rwanda, this is Omuganda, which sees community members come together to participate in development of community projects. It could be cleaning of towns or even building schools, such as this.
We tell them where to meet, and the population come themselves. It is obvious it is the obligation of the population to come, but we don't oblige them to come. It's just tell them the purpose of the activity, and themselves they come. Every people with the age beyond of 18 must come and contribute. It is in our culture, it is in the Rwandan culture that the population come, give the support, give the contribution in development of the country.
It is beyond the description on what Omuganda has done in Rwanda, because each and every district responds to schools and increase rooms with no problem, because parents find it a solution which they have to participate in too, because it is a response to the need. When you join together in the community work, you join effort with others, and what you can accomplish as an individual becomes less minute than what we collectively work for.
Back to infrastructure development conversation and the financing bit.
We talked about financing, but we never bring it back to basics. And here I think they brought it back to basics. Yes, we know that sometimes our resources are scarce, but the best way for us to utilize ourselves, to make sure that our resources scarce are not going to create a barrier for us getting to the level that we want to get. So the Omuganda is, to me, can be considered as a financing method if you utilize it in an appropriate way like it's done here.
From the outskirts of the city, back to Kigali Convention Center, this time not for infrastructure development conference, but for Umushyikirano, Rwanda National Dialogue.
Umushyikirano, as a way of having a dialogue on our national issues, it's to broadly discuss our affairs. It's to seek to narrow our differences in understanding of what we have to deal with and how. It's to have as many people contributing to this discussion of the national transformation agenda we have.
In 2018, Omushichirano focused on transformation of citizens' welfare, and participants included members of parliament, representatives of the Rwandan community abroad, local government, civil society organizations, media, and the diplomatic community. Omushichirano also provides an ideal platform for the president to respond to matters of national and regional importance. In the last Omushichirano, President Kagame had to respond to what critics have termed as Rwanda's lack of interest in the region's integration process.
Going forward, I think our record is very clear how we have intended to do everything within our power as a country, Rwanda, to promote regional integration, to promote the well-being and cooperation of everyone, with everyone in the region, and we will continue to do so. Rwanda to have joined the East African community was our choice, but I think it was also our right. I would tell whoever that it wasn't anybody doing us a favor.
From the hard talk, let's move to something else light but interesting in the streets of Kigali. It's on a Sunday morning, and main connecting roads to traffic in Kigali are closed to encourage people to walk, jog, as well as ride bicycles in the streets.
This exercise happens twice a month. So they call it a car free day, whereby a certain kind of route, one of the routes is free of cars. So people can do all sorts of exercise. Then we have got a meeting point where we go and do exercises, the gym, what they call the gym tonic. So people of all kinds, children, elderly people, young people, mothers, dads, everybody.
I started embracing this day because it gives me a very good health. When I'm done with this exercise, I feel better. Even my free days, I feel like I'm light. Yeah, so it's really good to come. First of all, it's free. Second, the government is encourage people where you feel like in the road there is a security, no cars, no. Even if the government can embrace such a things in the family, we thought that it is very good to come and to come with the kids, and good enough, they like it so much.
When I finish doing sports, I feel free to go in the road, but when we used to be at home, there was no such space. We used to struggle every time, no playing.
And that marks the end of our show. On behalf of the entire Charms Media team here in Kigali, Rwanda, see you next time.